So now we talk about editing your podcast. This is an aspect of the podcast experience or the podcasting experience that a lot of first timers actually find very overwhelming and very scary. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try and make this as easy for you and as straightforward for you. So I'll actually start with a little bit of an introduction on my theory and my belief system on this. I believe podcasting is an extremely human medium. It's a medium in which the listener gets very attached to the creator and vice versa. And I actually am a big fan of the experience not being very perfect. I want there to be a certain amount of mistakes. I want there to be a certain amount of almost bloopers within the course of a podcast, especially somebody that's starting out. And I want to see the podcast evolve and get better and better over time. It almost feels as though I'm a part of the experience with the host themselves. So what essentially one is trying to do here is one is trying to humanize their show. I personally believe it greatly impacts retention. So don't try to be an over perfectionist when it comes to editing your audio. I personally have never done it myself. So even when you're hearing some of my recordings, you're hearing certain issues and you're hearing certain things that could be improved upon. But that's because I want this conversation to feel as authentic as possible, as if I was just speaking to you at a bar or at a restaurant or at a coffee shop. So now that we've got that out of the way, that should take about 50% of the editing frustration and editing fear out of your mind, because you don't need to have a perfect audio at the end of it. So let's jump into a couple of things that you can do during the process of your recording itself that will make sure that the editing piece becomes as easy as possible, and then we move to editing. So when you're recording, if hypothetically you make a very large mistake, a very large blunder, it's not an issue at all. All you need to do is, once you made that mistake or blunder, take a long pause, all right, about a 10-second pause, and then repeat that segment or that section again. So whether it's a question you're asking somebody, just keep your composure, take a pause, and ask that question again. If you're recording a solo podcast and you make a mistake, and it's a very large mistake, then once again, don't fret about it. Just pause. No need to stop your recording or anything like that. And after 10 seconds, start that segment once again. This will make sure that when you're sitting at the point of editing, whether you're outsourcing this or whether you're doing it yourself, that the markers for where edits need to take place become extremely simple to find, right? The second thing that I would urge you to do is, I would urge you to have recorded your intro and your outro separately. We've already discussed this a couple of chapters ago, but the benefit of this is essentially in the show flow that you've created. We don't want to do repetitive tasks. So if you recorded your intro and outro and they're going to be consistent through the process of your podcast creation, you want to have done this separately so that when you're essentially putting together your final episode, you can just pull up your intro and you can pull up your outro, and you can merge or concatenate this with the main body of your podcast, and basically save yourself a bunch of time instead of recording both sides each and every time, which tend to sound inconsistent across episodes, which is not something people want to hear. All right. So now that we have gone through a little bit of the do's and don'ts around the recording piece, let's move to editing. All right. So with editing, you have two options in front of you. Option number one is outsourcing. So if you have the budget, and you wish to outsource the editing portion of your episode, that's very possible for you to do. You can do this in two ways. One is you can go to a platform like Fiverr, and for between $20 to $25 per episode, which should be your sweet spot, you should be able to find a good quality audio engineer that will edit an episode for you and give it back to you. You can give them a few notes on what essentially you like and what you don't like. But normally these guys have done this so many thousand times over that the output that you'll be getting will anyways far exceed your expectations. The second option is that if you wish to play within your own community itself of creators, within Hubhopper, we add all creators into a large community. Within that community, there are a lot of individuals and production houses that are already very proficient with post-production and with editing. Essentially, ask a query over there. We will be able to help you with this if you reach out to us, and we will connect you with the right folks for the editing of your podcast, and these people will do the post-production for your podcast for you. And it's just basically the community helping each other. So you're getting your end quality file and they're earning a little bit of money on the side, and this would probably be a little bit cheaper than a Fiverr. So that's if you want to outsource your editing, but it comes with a little bit of a price tag attached to it. Let's say you want to do this on your own. Now, if you want to do this on your own, there are three options. And I'm going to go from basically the hardest to the easiest, but I'll tell you the benefits of each. So one is you can use the staple of audio editing, which has been around for a very long time. There are desktop applications available for it. It's called Audacity. It's an application that you can download, and you can pretty much do everything on Audacity. I, however, personally, when I first entered the podcasting, world, and I opened Audacity, I felt extremely overwhelmed. It looks a little bit like the cockpit of a plane, and you don't know what to do. You don't know what knobs to turn. You don't know what levers to pull on, and you don't want to essentially mess things up. So Audacity is free, but I personally find it a little bit overwhelming, especially for a first-time podcaster. You don't need all of these bells and whistles. The second option is that you can use the Hubhopper Studio Editor. So we've got both a browser-based version for this, if you wish to do this on the web, and we've got an app-based version of this. Once again, this is free for creators. And what we've done here is we've made sure that we just have focused in on the most important aspects of editing, and we've also done a little bit of the background work for you. So we automatically enhance your audio, we automatically remove a little bit of background noise and do something called isolated waveform recording. So what you'd be able to do here is you'll be able to add your pre-rolls, you'll be able to add your post-rolls, you'll be able to split all of your different audio, you'll be able to merge all of them or concatenate all of this audio, you'll be able to add different layers of audio, you'll be able to add background music or sound effects. And once again, it's free and you can choose essentially which one to use. It is a lot easier, in my opinion, than on Audacity. Audacity, I believe, if you're a professional podcaster, should be your go-to option. Just blindly go with Audacity. If you're somebody who doesn't want to get overwhelmed very quickly, the Hubhopper Studio Editor is a phenomenal tool that you can use, and everything that's stated there comes from the perspective of somebody that's just getting started with podcast creation. So we actually asked 1,000 podcasters on what are the things that they require during their editing process, and from that knowledge base is what we created the Hubhopper Studio Editor. Now let's say hypothetically that you are somebody that wants to do this on your own, but you're also still willing to pay a little bit of money in the editing of your podcast. In this scenario, what I would suggest is a tool called Alitu. So it's spelled ALITU, and it's a few dollars a month. And what this does is it basically gives you a certain amount of additional benefits. It takes a little bit of workload away from the table from you. Again, for a first-time podcaster, I don't know how relevant this is or how important it is. It gives you high-quality audio at the end, but then there are a lot of, I would say, things that they've done which are quite interesting. So let's say that hypothetically you want to remove a specific sound that always comes in the background of your podcast, and it's just because where you're recording that background noise seems to always come. So you can isolate that background sound, and you can say that I don't want this to be in any one of my episodes, and you will make sure that that sound doesn't exist in any one of your episodes. And then they have a bunch of other things that they do. So you can use Alitu as an editing tool, but these are the general options. So I've given you outsourcing options. I've given you free editing software options. One which is slightly more complex, hard, but is a staple. One which is a lot easier for a first-time podcaster, and then one which is a paid option for you. What you're trying to do here is you're trying to remove only and only very large mistakes. You're trying to remove very obvious ums, ahs, and coughs. Anything that is over and above this, I would actually request you to ignore it entirely. We're not looking for perfection here. We're looking for something that people can relate to, and we're looking for something that actually humanizes you. So it's the polar opposite of what you would actually think about when you're considering editing. So I hope that helps, and look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.